When the rancher fell sick before Christmas, she fed his horses, and he never forgot her kindness. Snow had already begun to blanket the wide plains of Montana when December crept in that year. The mountains stood tall and silent, their peaks crowned in white, while the wind whispered through the dry grass like a warning of something heavy yet to come. For Ethan Walker, Christmas had always been just another date on the calendar. He was a wealthy rancher, known across 3 counties for his land, his horses, and his hard nature. People said he had a heart as cold as the winters he endured alone. And alone he truly was. Ethan's ranch stretched for miles, but the big house at its center felt emptier every year. His wife had passed away 5 winters ago, leaving behind silence that even the crackling fireplace couldn't chase away. Since then, Ethan had buried himself in work, pushing men hard, trusting no one fully, and keeping his emotions locked away like an old barn that hadn't been opened in years. But that winter, something went wrong. A rancher brought low. It started as a fever. Ethan ignored it at first. He always did. Ranchers didn't fall sick, they worked through cane. But within days, the fever worsened. His joints ached, his vision blurred, and his strength faded fast. One morning, he collapsed while trying to saddle his favorite horse, Thunder. By the time help arrived, Ethan was barely conscious. The ranch hands did what they could. A doctor was sent for, but the roads were nearly impassable with snow. The diagnosis came quickly and grimly: pneumonia. "You need rest," the doctor warned. "If you don't take this seriously, you might not see Christmas." Ethan hated those words. Confined to his bed, he lay staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant sounds of the ranch he could no longer manage. The men did their best, but with Christmas approaching, many had families to go to. One by one, they asked for leave. Ethan waved them off bitterly. "Go," he said, "I'll manage." But he didn't. A stranger at the gate. A few miles away, in a run-down cabin near the edge of town, lived Clara Bennett. Clara was no one important, or so the town believed. She was a widow, barely scraping by, doing odd jobs when she could. Her husband had died in a mining accident 2 years earlier, leaving her with nothing but debt and memories. She had no family nearby, no steady income, and no place at anyone's Christmas table. But Clara had something else: a kind heart. One evening, while walking to town to trade baked bread for supplies, Clara noticed something unusual. The gates to Ethan Walker's ranch were open, and the horses stood restless in their pens, whinnying softly. That never happened. Everyone knew Ethan Walker ran a tight operation. His animals were his pride. Concern tugged at her. Ignoring the biting cold, she walked closer. The sight broke her heart. The horses hadn't been fed properly. Water troughs were frozen. The animals were anxious, stamping their hooves against the cold ground. "Poor things," she whispered. She hesitated. Everyone warned her about Ethan Walker, said he was harsh, ungrateful, and cold, but the horses didn't know any of that. They were hungry. An act of quiet kindness. Clara returned to her cabin, gathered what little feed she had, and came back before nightfall. She broke the ice in the troughs, laid out feed, and spoke softly to the horses as she worked. Thunder, the black stallion, approached her cautiously. Clara smiled and held out her hand. "It's all right. I won't hurt you." To her surprise, the horse nudged her gently. From that night on, Clara returned every day. She fed the horses, brushed them, and ensured they were warm. She expected nothing in return. She never stepped inside the ranch house. She assumed Ethan was away, or worse. She was wrong. Eyes watching from the window. From his bedroom window, Ethan watched. At first, he thought the fever had made him hallucinate. A woman bundled in a worn coat, moving carefully through the snow, tending to his horses with care he rarely saw even from hired hands. Who was she, and why was she here? Each day, Ethan waited for her arrival. Her presence stirred something unfamiliar in his chest. Gratitude, maybe, or shame. One afternoon, the coughing grew worse. Ethan tried to arise from bed and failed. The room spun, his chest burned, and then darkness. A life saved. When Ethan woke, Clara was there. She had found him collapsed near the stairs, barely breathing. Panic had gripped her, but she acted fast, sending a ranch hand for the doctor and staying by his side all night. She cooled his fever with damp cloths, fed him broth, and whispered encouragement, though she wasn't sure he could hear. "Don't give up," she said softly. "You're not done yet." When Ethan finally regained strength enough to speak, his voice was hoarse. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. Clara looked surprised. "Because someone had to," she replied simply. Walls begin to fall. Over the next days, as Christmas drew closer, Clara continued caring for both Ethan and the ranch. She cooked meals, fed the animals, and cleaned the house, tasks she never expected to do for a man who had once ignored her existence. Ethan, for the first time in years, wasn't alone. They talked, slowly at first. Ethan learned about Clara's past, her loss, her struggles. Clara learned about Ethan's wife, the grief that had hardened him, and the loneliness he never admitted. "You didn't have to help me," Ethan said one evening. Clara smiled sadly. Kindness doesn't ask permission. Christmas morning. On Christmas morning, snow fell gently, wrapping the ranch in quiet beauty. Ethan was strong enough to stand by the window now. He watched Clara outside, laughing softly as thunder nudged her for attention. Something inside him shifted. For the first time in years, the house smelled of fresh bread. A small pine tree stood in the corner, decorated with simple ribbons Clara had made herself. "I don't remember the last Christmas I was alone," Ethan said quietly. "You aren't alone now," Clara replied. A promise kept. After the holidays, Ethan made a decision. He insisted Clara accept a permanent position on the ranch, not as a servant, but as a partner in its care. He helped repair Clara's cabin, cleared her debts, and ensured she would never struggle again. But more than that, he opened his heart. "Your kindness saved my life," he told her one evening. Clara met his gaze, tears shining. "Neither will I." A new beginning. Spring came early that year. The snow melted, the fields bloomed, and the ranch felt alive again. Laughter echoed where silence once lived. People in town noticed the change in Ethan Walker. He smiled more, he trusted more, he lived again. And at his side was the woman who asked for nothing, only to give everything. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness, feeding a hungry horse, helping a sick man, can change an entire life. And Ethan Walker never forgot it. Not on Christmas. Not ever. Subscribe for more videos.